My name is Pop, and today I'm finally ready to tell you how my own home turned into the place where I nearly disappeared and how the people I trusted the most pushed me into the shadows. What happened inside my walls will shock you, and the moment my grown boy opened that storage room door changed everything. Stay with me. This story doesn't start soft, and it doesn't end soft either. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe and share in the comments where you're watching from. Your messages keep me going and remind me why I tell these real-life stories at all. I never expected later life to feel so empty. I pictured slow mornings, quiet peace, long moments with warm memories. Instead, each sunrise felt heavier than the one before. I'd shuffle into the house kitchen, stretch out my stiff knees, warm water in my old metal kettle, and look out the window at the backyard tree I planted after my wife passed. It bloomed early every year, as if it was impatient for warmth. I used to stand there with my favorite cup and speak to her in my head simple things like groceries or the weather. Those tiny habits kept me steady. Back then, life followed a gentle rhythm. My monthly retirement income arrived at the beginning of each month. I paid my bills by hand, and I kept the house neat enough to feel like home. My adult daughter teased me about my towel folding skills. "Pop, you fold like you're back in the rescue department." She'd laugh. Hard to forget that this was the same girl who once cracked eggs with half the shell still inside the bowl. She grew up wild and warm, always late, always talking fast, always ending a hug with, "Love you, Dad. You always keep us steady." People change in ways you don't see coming. One certain morning, she and her husband arrived with 2 suitcases each, and anxious faces. Their story was some issue with a landlord, a lost place to stay, just a short visit. I didn't hesitate. "Make yourselves comfortable here," I told them. And I meant it. I cleaned the guest room myself, washed the sheets twice, even vacuumed corners nobody had seen in years. Her husband thanked me with a firm handshake and a careful smile. The kind a person gives when they're trying to make a good impression. I thought that was a good sign. Looking back, I was painfully wrong. The early days were warm. My adult daughter, humming in the house kitchen, shared dinners. Footsteps echoing down the hallway after so long alone, it felt good to be part of something again. People forget that older folks once carried entire families. When you slow down, you start wondering if anyone remembers the weight you used to lift. So when her husband offered to help with finances, I saw responsibility, not danger. He brought a document packet marked up with tabs where he said I should sign. "This will make everything simpler," he told me. My adult daughter stood beside him, smiling that old, easy smile. "Pop, he's good with numbers. Let him take over. You don't need to do it all." I trusted her more than myself. I signed every page. For a while, life seemed smooth. Bills were paid, groceries showed up, and the house stayed calm. My adult daughter cooked often. Her husband mowed the lawn, and they whispered about their future behind closed doors. I slipped back into a quieter rhythm, thinking things were finally settling. But peace ends quietly. Little changes started appearing, the kind you don't notice until they pile up. He stopped knocking before entering my office space. "My adult daughter," said Pop, without that warmth she used to have. Mail disappeared before I ever saw it. Shadows before a storm dot the last calm day. I remember started soft warm sun on my shoulder, steam rising from my favorite cup, leaves of the backyard tree moving slowly. I thought, maybe this is what aging gracefully feels like. Should have held on to that moment longer, because the first real sign wasn't a scream. It wasn't a fight. It was a thin envelope with numbers that didn't add up. A bank statement that certain mornings stays sharp in my mind. I sat at the house kitchen table, the same spot where I used to pack lunches for my adult daughter, and held an envelope that felt almost empty. One shake and I knew something was off. When I tore it open, my chest tightened. The numbers on the page didn't match what I knew should be there. My monthly retirement income had arrived, but the balance was nearly drained. I blinked hard, hoping the letters were smudged. I moved the page closer to the light, traced the numbers with my thumb, but nothing changed. The money was simply gone. A heavy chill crawled up my spine. I carried that flimsy sheet into the lounge, where her husband lounged in my recliner like he'd claimed it, shoes up, remote in hand, sipping a bottle as if he'd earned the right to relax. "Can we talk for a moment?" I asked quietly. He didn't even glance at me. "Just switch the channel." My monthly retirement income disappeared, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you know where it went? He finally gave me a casual grin, the kind that carried no real warmth. Oh, I moved it. Makes things easier. I asked. Into the joint account, he replied, standing up slowly like he wanted to tower over me. You signed the papers. I handle things now. The way he said it sent a wave of discomfort through me. I remembered signing his document packet. Yes, but not giving up control of my entire life. I never said you could take my income, I whispered. He stepped forward, crowding the space between us. You already did, he murmured. That's how it works. My heart pounded not out of fear, but from disbelief that anyone could twist kindness this far, and things only unraveled from there. A couple of days later, I walked into the lounge and stopped cold. A massive new TV filled the wall. Boxes lay torn open electronic gadgets, a speaker set, wires everywhere. My adult daughter was helping him set it all up. I picked up a price tag. It was extremely expensive. Who paid for this? I asked. He didn't bother looking up. Did I never agree to this? That's the nice part, he answered with a cold grin. I manage everything now. I looked at my adult daughter, the same girl who once ran into my arms with scraped knees. The same girl who used to smile like sunlight. She dropped her eyes. He's trying to help. Pop, she whispered. Please don't make this worse. That word worse hit harder than anything he'd said. After that, he treated my own money like it belonged to him. Ask before you use your cards, he'd say. You don't need all that. You should save what I'm managing. Every sentence made it clearer. He thought he was the one earning it. Still, I stayed quiet. I didn't want a battle under my own roof. I tried convincing myself that maybe I was reading too much into things. Then came the night that shattered every doubt. I went to grab my phone from the counter, but it was gone. I checked everywhere: drawers, shelves, cushions, nothing. My adult daughter stood by the sink, pretending not to notice my panic. Then he walked in holding it. I covered your bill, he said coolly, and the phone stays with me from now on. Too many scams out there. Elderly folks get tricked. I'm not elderly, I protested softly. He smirked. You are now. Something inside me cracked. Not loudly, but deep. About a week later, he called me into the main room like I worked for him. My adult daughter sat stiffly beside him. We've made a decision, he announced. You're taking up too much space. You'll sleep in the storage room from now on. I stared at him, unable to speak. The storage room, I repeated. He nodded, as if it was reasonable. You'll have your old thin mattress, your tools, async. You come into the house only when we allow it, just until we're settled. I looked at my adult daughter. Sweetheart. She couldn't even lift her head. Pop, please don't make this harder. Harder. I was being pushed out of my own home. He pressed a hand on my shoulder and shoved me toward the storage room door. I hit the frame on the way in. That shove erased any doubt. He never cared about helping me. He wanted everything: my home, my money, my silence. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I didn't crumble. I just stared at that dim storage room and felt myself go very still. Not defeated, just quiet. Quiet in a way that meant something inside me had woken up. That first night, I barely moved. It wasn't the cold floor or the ache in my back from the old thin mattress. It was the realization that nothing around me resembled the life I had built. The water heater hummed like a reminder I'd been pushed aside. A slow drip echoed near the wall. Mice rustled inside old boxes that used to hold happier things. And I lay there, wondering how a home filled with memories had turned into a room meant to hide me, the storage. Rune always had those small noises that drip in the corner, the hum of the heater, the shuffle of mice, but that night they carried a different weight. Every sound felt like the house was reminding me how far I'd been pushed from my own life. The blanket wrapped around my shoulders smelled of dust and motor oil, and I kept staring at the beams above me, counting every knot in the wood so my mind wouldn't drift into panic. Years ago, this room held birthday decorations, my adult daughter's bike, and shelves we'd built together. Now it held me tucked away like something someone didn't know what to do with. That was the ache that cut deepest knowing. She watched this happen and kept her silence. The next morning, I stepped into the house kitchen, hoping for a little warmth. But her husband was already in my chair, feet up, drinking from my favorite cup as if ownership had shifted overnight. You need permission before coming in, he said. Not bothering to look at me, my adult daughter flipped something on the stove, pretending nothing was wrong. "I only want some coffee," I murmured. He didn't argue. Instead, he walked to the counter, grabbed the car keys, tossed them into a drawer, and said, "5 minutes. That's all you get. 5 minutes." In my own house, I didn't raise my eyes, didn't speak. I filled my cup with hands shaking from emotional shock instead of age, returned to the storage room, and let the steam drift toward my face. That was the moment the truth settled like a stone. I wasn't part of the home anymore. I was an inconvenience they wanted out of sight. Later that day, I tried logging into my bank account. The password had been changed. My checkbook had vanished. My wallet held only old photographs, everything else stripped away. Piece by piece, my life had been carefully taken apart. At night, I found myself pressing my palm against the wooden wall that separated me from the house, clinging to the memory of belonging. One evening, I stared at faint handprints on an old box, my daughter's tiny paint-covered hands from years ago, and whispered, "What happened to us?" The only answer was the steady dripping in the corner. Days began to blur. Cold mornings, even colder nights. Meals placed in the doorway with no conversation. Clothes missing. My old tool crate was rearranged. Every step was watched. But something subtle began growing inside me. Not anger, not hatred, something steadier. A quiet understanding. None of this was a mistake. None of it was stress or confusion. They were doing this deliberately, shrinking me until I no longer recognized myself. And that realization changed everything. I formed a new routine in those silent hours. Each morning, I folded my blanket with exact corners. It wasn't about neatness, it was discipline. Each day, I wrote small notes on scraps of cardboard. Dates, missing money, words spoken, bruises, meals denied. At first, it was scattered thoughts, but soon it became organized. A record, a trail. I didn't confront them. Not yet. I watched instead. You learn a lot when people think you've given up. I overheard him bragging about calling my monthly retirement income his. I saw my adult daughter nod while he talked about future plans for the house. Boxes of electronic gadgets arrived while I ate cold leftovers in the storage room. He laughed loudly about old men who don't know any better, thinking I couldn't hear every night, sitting on that old thin mattress. I whispered their names, not with hatred, but disbelief. That disbelief hardened into resolve, a calm determination I thought I lost long ago. As rain tapped against the metal door, I looked at my small record book, pages crowded with evidence, and whispered, "This stops when I choose." For the first time in weeks, that whisper felt like strength. Not loud, not dramatic. Just real. I wasn't ready to act, but I had begun to plan. The shift inside me came with a slow breath one quiet morning. I realized they weren't trying to protect me, they were preparing to erase me. So I changed my approach. I cleaned the storage room each day, sat straighter, spoke less, moved with purpose. Small changes, but the kind that unsettled a man like him. Abusers fear silence and certainty. I was becoming both. I hid my small record book behind an old paint can, one of the only places he never checked. Each entry was deliberate. Early summer date, a large withdrawal. Midsummer date, shoved into the wall, shoulder aching. Midsummer date, breakfast withheld. Dozens more, truth collected drop by drop. When the house finally quieted at night, I sat on the edge of the mattress and mapped their routines. His late afternoon walks, his long showers, my adult daughter's tendency to avoid conflict early in the day. Patterns predictable. Patterns began forming patterns I could use. Her husband kept the same schedule every day, late afternoon walks, long nighttime showers that steamed up the hall, and a temper that tightened as the evening crept in. My adult daughter avoided tension at sunrise, but grew uneasy once the sun dipped. Their patterns became so predictable, they felt like lines in a script, and I studied each one carefully. One certain morning, I brushed dust off my old tool crate and whispered the title of the story forming in my mind. My grown boy found me living in the storage room, and her husband claimed my monthly retirement income as his. Saying it aloud was like snapping a branch. It made the truth sharp and undeniable. I realized I needed help, real help. But if I made the wrong move, they'd twist it into something cruel, claim I'd wandered off, or say I was losing my mind. It was exactly the kind of trick he'd use. So I waited, patiently. Then the moment arrived in the form of my grown boy. He showed up without warning when he stepped into the storage room and saw me thinner, bruised, sitting on that old thin mattress like I was living in someone's forgotten corner. The look on his face told me everything. I wasn't imagining any of it. What they were doing to me was real. That moment split my life in two. Later, after he pulled me out and drove me somewhere safe, he pressed a hidden spare phone into my palm. "For emergencies, Pop," he whispered. "Hide it somewhere he'll never think to check." That small device became my lifeline. I tucked it into the lining of my old work jacket with the sewn patch. An old trick only someone from the rescue department days would understand. Then I returned to the storage room, pretending I had no other place to go. Letting him believe he'd worn me down, while quietly laying the groundwork for my escape, I began collecting proof. Every bruise, every insult, every stolen dollar, every rule he invented to shrink me. I photographed the cracked concrete, the rusting sink, the flickering bulb, the mattress that was barely more than a sheet of cloth. Evidence cold, undeniable, and far stronger than his polished lies. My grown boy connected me with a legal advocate for Señor Miss Rohan. She carried herself with a kind of controlled confidence that sliced straight through excuses. She listened, asked sharp questions, filled pages with notes faster than I could explain. When I handed her my documentation, she scanned it, looked at me, then at my grown boy, and said, "This is enough to begin a case, but we'll need additional pieces." More, the word used to wear me down. Now it lit something inside me. So I worked slowly, carefully, doctor's reports, financial statements, dates, times, weight loss, bruises I'd tried to hide. Each piece fit into the story of what had been done to me. At night, in the silence of the storage room, I whispered, "They don't understand what real silence can do, because silence isn't surrender. Silence is strategy." Then he found the decoy phone. He ripped apart the storage room, convinced he'd uncovered my only line of communication. He gloated. Sure, he'd cut me off again, but he never realized the real evidence wasn't there. It was already safe, already sorted, already turning into something he couldn't escape. Everything he did, every cruel rule, every stolen dollar, every shove became a weight he would have to carry in front of the law. One rainy night, I closed my small record book, set my pen down, and breathed slowly. "The stage is set," I whispered. All that remained was timing. The morning of the legal review arrived with an eerie stillness. No fear, no panic, just the kind of breath you take when stepping into a new life. My grown boy didn't speak much on the drive. He didn't need to. The way he steadied my step, adjusted my seatbelt, rested a firm hand on my shoulder, it said enough. That day he wasn't just my grown boy. He was my anchor. The district building towered above us, cold stone and straight lines. It felt like a place built for truth. Inside, the air was crisp and sharp, as if the walls themselves didn't tolerate lies. Ms. Rohan waited near the entrance, her suit-neat eyes steady. "Today," she said calmly, "we're taking your life back." Inside the hearing room, he was already seated. Her husband sat at the defense table in a suit that swallowed him wrong tight in the shoulders, loose at the collar. His confidence, once loud and suffocating, now clung to him like damp cloth. My adult daughter sat beside him, red-eyed fingers twisting together. She couldn't even look my way. I felt a tug in my chest when I saw my adult daughter sitting beside him, small, familiar, and heavy, but I didn't let it drag me under. This day wasn't about the people who had failed me. It was about reclaiming what they tried to erase. When the magistrate entered, everyone rose. Her eyes scanned the room with the calm of someone who had seen every kind of mess people could make. She studied the photographs first, the cold floor of the storage room, the old thin mattress, the rusted sink, that single flickering bulb. Every image landed in the hearing room like a stone dropped into water. I heard someone in the back rows inhale sharply. Even the magistrate leaned forward. I kept my gaze fixed on the table, not out of shame, but because I didn't need to see their reactions to know. The truth had finally gained its voice. Next came the medical documentation: bruises, in different stages of healing, steady weight loss, signs of deliberate neglect. The magistrate's jaw tightened as she read. But Ms. Rowan wasn't finished. She pressed a button on her small remote. The speakers crackled, and then his voice filled the space. "That monthly retirement income belongs to me now. I control everything. His arrogance echoed off the wood-paneled walls. He shifted in his seat. Color drained from his face, but the next recording cut even deeper. Once I get him declared incompetent, this house will be mine too. And he stays in the storage room because those are my rules. The silence that followed swallowed the air. The magistrate turned to him. "Mr. Carver, is that your voice?" He straightened his shoulders, eyes darting. "Yes, and is that your statement?" A pause long enough to rot. "Yes, no fancy excuses, no explanations, just the truth collapsing on top of him." His attorney tried to salvage something, calling it a misunderstanding, claiming confusion, suggesting I enjoyed being independent. But the magistrate didn't budge. Her voice came down like stone: financial exploitation and unlawful eviction. My adult daughter's tears ran silently. He stared straight ahead, jaw locked. Burning with anger, he no longer had space to use. The magistrate continued, "The financial authorization papers are voided. All taken funds must be returned. Mr. and Mrs. Carver are ordered to leave the property within 48 hours. A no-contact safety order is granted immediately." I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. The silence between us was enough. When the official proceeding ended, my grown boy rose and steadied me. My legs trembled not with fear, but with release. Several months of humiliation emptied from my chest in one breath. In the hallway, my adult daughter approached. "Pop, please," she whispered, voice cracking like thin wood. I stepped back. My grown boy moved gently between us. The magistrate's words echoed in my head, but something else echoed too: truth. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply said, "You should have stood by me." That single sentence carried more weight than any shouting ever could. By the next noon, they were gone boxes, loaded, doors shut, the house left in a rare and honest quiet. I stood at the doorway and breathed in a home that finally belonged to me again. Every wall, every floorboard, every memory, those months of cruelty hadn't ended with a fight. They ended with truth, timing, and dignity. As silence settled back into my home, true silence, this time I walked through each room like someone rediscovering a forgotten world. My chair sat where it used to. My favorite cup waited clean on the rack. The family photos they'd stuffed away stood tall again on the hallway shelf. It felt like the house itself exhaled with me. In the weeks that followed, I often sat at the house kitchen table in the early morning, fingers wrapped around a warm drink, listening to the type of silence that heals instead of harms. I thought about those nights in the storage room, the cold, the humiliations, the rules meant to make me disappear, and how easily she had gone along with it. For a long time, those memories were sharp enough to cut, but slowly they softened, not because I forgave everything, but because I finally understood the truth. Respect doesn't vanish suddenly. It fades, bit by bit, until one day you finally look around and see what's left. And when my grown boy found me shivering and thin on that old, thin mattress, the first thing he said was, "This isn't who you are." He was right. That sentence became the thread I followed back to myself. I don't hate my adult daughter. I don't hate him either. Hate takes energy I choose not to give away. I've earned my peace, and I've learned something I'll never forget: when someone shows you how little they value you, you don't plead or wait for them to change. You quietly take your life back. That is the real heart of my story. My grown boy found me living in the storage room, and her husband claimed my monthly retirement income was his. But they forgot something important. A man who has lived, raised a child, survived loss, and built a home does not lose his strength just because others decide he's easy to push aside. Age doesn't remove dignity. Cruelty doesn't erase wisdom. And silence is not weakness. Silence is preparation. I sleep peacefully now. Not because I won, but because I reclaimed what mattered: my home, my self-respect, my voice, and peace. Real peace is the strongest justice I've ever known. If you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Tell me in the comments. And make sure to subscribe for more true, life-filled stories shared from the heart.